All right, folks, welcome to vBrownBag. Tonight is March 11th, 2020. Hopefully everybody is enjoying this while at home. I think most of us are working from home these days, or hopefully you're at least, in the evening hours being able to join this. So everybody say hi to Nick. Nick, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Joe. Glad to be here. So everybody, Nick Scuola. I'll kind of go through the quick bio slide. I had to throw a picture of my buddy Joe here as well. But I'm a senior SC with Zerto. Been over there almost 3 years now. I'm also one of the vExpert pros. So anyone out there looking to join the ranks and get more involved in the program, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you on your journey. I'm also a former NYC vMug leader, and I've recently relocated down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I definitely have better pictures, but I had to throw this one up here because I wouldn't be here without these two folks. So Ariel, I'm sure if you don't know who Ariel Sanchez is, I think you've been living under a rock, but he was actually a former New York City vMug leader who, thanks to his lovely wife, hi Amy, decided to move to Pittsburgh, and that freed up a spot on the NYC vMug leadership team, which I gladly jumped into. So without him, I definitely wouldn't be in the position where I'm able to present to you guys today. Same goes for my buddy Joe Hughes over here, HOU. And Joe was actually, really kind in, asking if I would present. And, without him, I don't think I'd be here as well. So I appreciate you looking out for me and, giving me the chance to speak to everybody today.
Absolutely.
So one other thing to note, so I do have a blog. It's spookysolutions.com. Long story on the name. We'll get into that later. But there is one thing. This presentation actually comes from a blog post I did, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago about, how to be an awesome IT professional. And it was really just talking about my journey and some of the things that I've gone through over the years in order to kind of get where I am, and really what kind of traits I've been looking to adapt over the years and really kind of make my own here. So we can dive right in, Joe. Are we good to go, or?
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Don't have any questions from anybody so far. I guess I'm wondering, how long have you had your blog running now? Was it 9, 10 years?
Something like that. It's been a while. I'm terrible as far as how often I actually put stuff up there. So I should definitely try to make it a concerted effort to put more content up there. But I definitely get 2 or 3 blogs a year, and I've had some. I think some of my most popular ones are probably about 6 or 7 years old, when I was talking a lot about Pure Storage when I was a customer and that sort of thing. And I think that's kind of as part of the journey that I'm going to talk about, is making the evolution from being an end user to now being on the vendor side and kind of everything in between. So
yeah,
hopefully that history is up there as well. All right. So
I need to invite a couple more folks to the Google Foo Army. We're still working hard to try and find your part-time male model images all over the place.
So that's actually a funny story. So I throw that in pretty much every deck. Like the professional ones, I try to take it out, but whenever I'm doing vMugs or any community driven presentations, I throw that in, because the first time I presented at a New York City vMug, before being a leader, it's kind of my first time getting up on stage in front of people. I threw that in there just to see if people were paying attention, and just to know if people were actually looking at the slides that were on the screen. And I heard a couple giggles when this slide came up, and it just kind of put me at ease and let me know that, yeah, all right, people are actually looking at what I'm reading or what I'm putting up there. So it makes it a lot easier for me to kind of calm my nerves, get up there, and just kind of shoot from the hip.
Pro tip.
All right. So I'm going to throw out a disclaimer. I'm sharing my personal experiences. I'm sure people out there have different, points of view, different experiences. And really the goal of this is just all love. Like, I don't want to have any kind of, bad mouthing or anything like that. I'm looking to just provide you the things that have worked for me. And if it works for you, take it, make it your own. If it doesn't, just don't worry about it. I'd love to hear your stories as well. So if, anyone out there, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. It's nscuola, Scuola. People always spell it wrong, just like my buddy Joe here. And I am a former Marine, so I might drop some F-bombs. There's a chance that I'm going to have a potty mouth, so it happens. And the lower my whiskey here gets, the more likely that's going to happen. So, all right. So definitely, I hope everyone kind of gets involved in the conversation. If I can't answer you, while this is going on, I'll definitely get out there and start, answering any of your questions and replying to some of the heckling I'm sure I'll get. But definitely looking to get more involved and meet more of you out there. And anybody I don't know, I'd love to make that connection in the future as well. So I always like to start this out if I'm speaking live to an audience. I really want to understand who I have in the room. And part of that comes from the fact that some of these tips might be applicable to certain job types and roles. And some of them are going to really attack the broader audience. So really knowing if you're an in-house admin, maybe you're a consultant, or you could be like myself and be a sales engineer, or if you're in management. I've held many different roles over the years, not just in-house, but on the consulting side as well. So I've got some experience. I've probably changed jobs a little too often, but is what it is. I wouldn't be where I am today if not for that history. So hopefully I can provide you with some guidance on kind of how you could take your career to the next level. So I'm going to kind of talk about what my journey's been like over the years, and really I want to emphasize that when I first started out, I'd say probably my first 5 to 7 years out there, I was laser focused on what my job was and what I did. Really, I wanted to make sure that I was the best. I am very competitive, so I tried to learn as much as I could, and I was very technical, and what I did really well. But I almost pigeonholed myself to the point where I was so focused on one thing and being really good at that I kind of was missing what was happening. I was focused on the tree instead of the forest, and over the years I've got away from doing that. But really, what I wanted to do is take some introspection and really see, what was I doing early on in my career that I probably could have changed and made some adjustments to kind of get me to where I am today. And some of these tips, you're going to probably be like, all right, that's common sense. Everybody does that. But I think when I first started to write down some of the things that made me successful, it kind of opened my eyes and really started, clicking some thoughts on, I should have focused more in that area. You could see down here, I've got presentation skills listed. I would never have been able to do this, say, 10 years ago. And just the fact that I'm naturally introverted, so just getting up on a stage and talking to a ton of people, would have been really hard for me. And actually, it's funny because I'm happy that I have Joe on the line with me, because I sat in one of his communication sessions at the NYCV Mug, and he brought to light a lot of the things that, bad habits, and I'm not listening to him in this presentation, because I remember he mentioned to go bullet by bullet instead of just throwing all the content up there to the customer or to the person you're speaking to. And I know I'm not listening, so sorry, Joe, but I did hear what you said. But really the goal is to help better not only myself, but everybody that I can come into contact with. So, and part of that really comes from, being educated. So I am a college dropout. I did a semester and a half at St. John's University, and I realized that there was no chance for me to, start in front of Felipe Lopez on the basketball team. So I dropped out and joined the Marine Corps. It was a definite change of experience, change of venue, we'll say, but it definitely instilled a lot of the traits that I have today. And, I'm going to go into some of them, but really the goal for me was just, I wanted to find something that, would be challenging. And, all I heard was, how tough the Marine Corps was. And it was definitely an experience. But what I found out was pretty interesting on the way back is that I started applying for certain jobs, a little further into my career, we'll say maybe 7 to 10 years into my career. And I was getting passed up because I didn't have a college degree. And to me, this is kind of interesting because a lot of the jobs that I was looking for were, say, VMware focused or, Cisco networking focused and things like that. And the technology that I was looking to work on didn't exist when I would have graduated. So some of these come like I work at Zerto today. The company was founded and really started shipping in 2009. I would have graduated long before then. So in order to be relevant in today's marketplace, you need to keep learning. And there's a ton of ways to do that. Certifications is one avenue. You can go in and, pass a test, but for me, learning the content is even more important. And not only that, but practicing and focusing. And, there's a ton of, I'd say, presentations and a lot of content out there around home labs and how to set up these home labs and things like that. But sometimes it could be as simple as just going onto VMware site and looking at some hands-on labs. I know, a ton of vendors out there have free hands-on labs that you can get up there and get your hands dirty. But if you're not out there and furthering your education, you're not going to be relevant in a few years. And we've seen how quickly the market has changed, especially, if we look at the announcements from VMware the other day around Kubernetes, and, I hear it's kind of a big thing. I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be around for a while, but
Don't believe the hypes, folks. DevOps is not real.
So, it just comes down to, do you want to be in this marketplace where things are changing, or do you just want to have a job, be comfortable? And there's nothing wrong with, being comfortable in your job or your role, but, I think a lot of people out there want to get better. And for me, the best way to do that was to get educated and to learn about, new technologies and try to further myself that way.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's plenty of folks out there that really don't have a huge interest in the technology, other than that being the market or the ecosystem they want to work in, but they really want to be into, say, management. So
yep.
learn even enough to be dangerous, but learn the business side of it as well as the technical side. Whatever it is you're trying to do, just define a goal and drive your career. Doing a summer course last year with Don Jones and Mike Pfeiffer. Anybody that's large in the PowerShell community or in Azure stuff probably recognize those guys. And we were covering the Be the Master book that Don Jones had, and the biggest point he had through all of it was basically, do not be a passenger in your career. Like, get in the driver's seat and go wherever it is you've determined you're going. Just be proactive about it. Come up with goals, come up with a plan for yourself, and push yourself. And if it's something you decide you don't want to do or don't want to pursue, then just switch it up. Change to whatever is more interesting to you, and basically just drive your own career to wherever it is you want to go.
100%. Yeah, nobody's going to hand you anything. So I think at the end of the day, if you want something, you need to go out there and get it. And you got to be the one with the passion to kind of grab that job that you want. And even if you fail the first time, that's good. It gives you something to learn from. And nobody is, in my mind, you don't learn unless you experience and you fail. It's the best way to kind of get out there and understand, what you did wrong and how to adapt and how to, change what the situation was. So around that, being organized is really important. And I read a book called Make Your Bed by Admiral William McRaven. And the too long didn't read version is that when you wake up in the morning, just get up and make your bed. And then no matter what happens throughout your day, you know that you've accomplished something. You took a task that had to be done, you did it, and you can then build upon that and go and knock out some other tasks, from there. And, at the end of the day, like me, if you're working from home, with everything going on, getting home and seeing that made bed is just another reminder that, yes, I did something today. And those routines don't have to be limited to just, the stuff you do at home, but it's also when you get to work. Do you have a process for going through you and, do I check my email? Am I looking for open tickets, or, have I followed up with the customers or the end users that I need to follow up with, right? Make sure that you have a plan of attack and that you're trying to knock out a couple of small goals each day. And then over time, those are going to add up and really help you kind of keep track of all that work and make sure that additional things don't just keep piling on and piling on. You want to be able to knock out some of these tasks. And along the same lines, I'm a firm believer in, documentation and standardizing and really, Joe's a huge proponent here of automation as well. And for me, I want to leave a place better than I found it. When I leave, or if I give my 2 weeks notice, and, I might've mentioned that I've changed jobs once or twice here, in the past, right? I want to make sure that when I leave, I'm not getting MF'd out the door, like this son of a, he didn't do all those things he said. No, I want them to be like, you know what? Nick left the place in a better shape than he found it. It's going to be better for that next person, because this community is very small, and I've run into people that I never expected to see again, at VMworld, or, just walking the streets in San Francisco, or, just randomly you'll run into people, and it definitely comes full circle. So you don't want to build or burn any of those bridges over time. You want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to help make things easier for the next person. And what would happen if you were the new person starting out, right? What if you're the new girl, the new guy out there, and how easy would it be for you to start your job if documentation is not available, or if you don't have a mentor to kind of lead you along the way? What can you do to make things easier for that next person? Okay. So I am a big fan of Bruce Lee, and one of my favorite quotes is be like water making its way through the cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, and it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Now, water can crash or it can flow. Just be water, my friend. And to me, what this message says is you need to adapt and overcome. You need to be able to adapt to the surroundings, adapt to the marketplace. You need to be able to see, what's going on. And, circling back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as the education and knowledge and kind of where the industry is going, you need to be able to adapt with the times and have more of a growth mindset. And I'll talk about a reading list later on, but one of the books that I read was Mindset. It's the New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck, and she talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And really, do you look at something where if you fail, is it because you're bad at something, or is it because you didn't do the things that you needed to do in order to get to that goal? And for me, I try to look at every situation as an opportunity to grow, and for me to make myself better in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes I'm going to try new things and fail at them miserably, as and other times I'm going to be able to hop right in and learn from something. But the goal is to really be able to adapt not only your mindset but your viewpoint. And I have a certain way of doing things, but then I step into a new community, or I listen to a presentation and I hear a completely different method that I didn't even think about. And being able to be like, what, maybe that way is better than what I'm doing, it is really going to help you in the long run. So just make sure that you're open to new ideas and not kind of set in your ways. So once again, I'm going to throw up my buddy Ariel. I also have my friend Wes Carroll over here, who's another Zertonian. And Wes is actually my PowerShell guru. No offense, Joe. Sorry about that. But
That's all good.
I'm looking to learn more about PowerShell. I've been attending some user groups and just really trying to kind of start from scratch in something in an area where I know I have some room for improvement. And Wes has been helping me along the way. So the main thing to really realize is that I don't know is okay. And you might not know something, but the spoiler is nobody really knows everything. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to learn something new each day of the week. I can guarantee everybody out there has kind of gone through their experiences at work, or they've gone through a conference and they just walked out of like with that oh shit moment, like, oh man, I didn't know that. I'm so happy that I attended this, because I'm going to leave knowing something I didn't know when I got here. And it's okay to go ask for help. And Twitter and the community out there has been great for me, where you have the ability to reach out. If you're a Veeam customer, you've got Joe here, you've got a whole bunch of evangelists out there and people in the community that you can reach out to and ask a question. Same thing, just think about any vendor out there. You probably have seen somebody out on Twitter, or at a user group, somebody presenting on a topic. Go up to them and ask them a question. Especially for conferences. Now, I know it's a little different now with all the coronavirus stuff and the fact that there's a lot of travel restrictions, but for me, going to these conferences, I hardly ever sit in a session. I spend more time trying to see the people that, I need to learn something from, and the people I want to talk to and network with, because you don't really have that opportunity to go face to face with a lot of these folks often. So when you get that chance, you got to definitely take advantage of it. I mean, Joe, I know you're involved in the community probably more than anybody, as far as being a leader or anything. Any thoughts on that one? I mean,
Yeah, my biggest thing is, like even bringing it back to your point on PowerShell. I tell everybody in every presentation I give about PowerShell, get dash help as your friend. Just if you save yourself the time of putting on airs of, oh, I know this, or it's something simple or something that I do on a regular basis, I must obviously have this on the top of my head. We don't always. Sometimes it's just easier to look at something or read the help or ask someone else to say, hey, I think this might be right, but before I go off sideways or before I spend hours trying to troubleshoot or beat my head into, some topic that I just assume should be something I know, just ask somebody. Even if somebody gets you one step ahead, or you can explain what you're having a problem with and they can try and get you around the confusion that you're having, or even if they give you an explanation of why you're having that problem, maybe you won't have it the next time. Even with most people, just getting the perspective of how someone sees something or how someone approaches a problem might be something new that you now have, another tool in the tool belt for the next time.
awesome. Yeah, and I think that kind of goes right into my next point here, is around troubleshooting skills. Now, I started out my journey. I think the first certification I ever went after was A plus, and this is, I don't know, I might be dating myself, but it was about 20 years ago, so at least, maybe more.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, man. And it was back in the 90s. Yeah. So I went out, got my A plus certification, and I remember I was all excited and pumped, and you know, but I didn't realize that some of the foundational things that I was learning was around what tools to use, how to Google, and putting computers together was great. But once again, that whole, sometimes not knowing the answer isn't as important as being able to find it. And I like to ask questions, like whenever I was interviewing, candidates for jobs. I want to try to grasp what their mindset is and what their approach is, right? How I'm going to ask you something you definitely don't know, or try to ask you something that you don't know, and see not really how if you stumble, but how do you react? How do you adapt on the fly to that question, and be able to, adjust. And I want to see if you're going to say, I don't know. And to me, that's fine. And maybe some people don't have that same approach, but I've never had, somebody come up to me and say, the fact that you said I don't know is unacceptable or anything like that. They usually would kind of pull me aside and help me learn. Or even if I mess up, I was more, I'll ask for forgiveness and permission and that sort of thing. But being able to get out there and broaden yourself, that's going to be like the overarching message here is, you got to be able to broaden your horizons. You got to be able to go out and learn. And sometimes that's going to be, setting up that home lab, or going through a hands-on lab, or going through the experience yourself, even if you don't have access to something in your day job. Find somebody who does, or go to a user group, or do whatever you can to reach out to those people that can help you along the way. I love the acronym RTFM. It's near and dear to my heart. Military guy, so for me, it's read the fucking manual. Get out there, and most places are going to have technical documentation. You'll have the ability to get out there and find your answer if you're, willing to look for it. But like Joe said, have that network that you can reach out to, and try to help find the answer, or at least push you in the right direction. Like I try to not give the answer to people, but aim them in the right direction where they could find it themselves.
Right.
The whole concept of teach somebody to fish as opposed to giving them a fish, it'll definitely help you as well as your coworkers in the end.
Well, so a couple of tips on that one that I've got, and I try and do this especially with folks in the office, when we're working in person. If you ask someone a question and you're fairly certain they don't know the answer, but it seems like they might be afraid to say, I don't know, then just ask, okay, it seems like you may not necessarily have the answer to this thing, or you might be confused on this. Like, let's walk through it step by step, or, tell me the things that you know for sure that it shouldn't be and why, and then maybe we can suss out, what it would be, if you're doing diagnostics or troubleshooting or things like that. Or if you yourself are afraid to say, I don't know, get to the point of just saying, these are the things that I do know. This is the stuff that I'm fairly confident about. These are the things where I'm making a wild ass, but still slightly educated guess. And if you just present things that way, then sometimes you can even help people to understand where it is that you get off track in your thinking, or where you're venturing into the things that are beyond your current skill set, but you're still trying to apply your knowledge and your experience to understand what it is you're trying to figure out. And that goes a long way with a lot of people. And honestly, if anybody tells you that it's not okay for you to not know some answer, then first thing you should do is just ask them to write you a book on everything, because obviously they've got those answers. Like, it's just unacceptable.
Exactly. That's great. I'm going to use that one. So along those same lines, when you run into those, how dare you not know something, don't be an asshole. Like that's my whole parenting philosophy. It's just don't be an asshole. And my goal in life as a dad is to make sure that all my kids grow up and are just not that person, because they suck. And around being approachable, you're going to be uncomfortable. And like I said, the IT industry as a whole, I think, is a very introverted group. We kind of work through our challenges, I think, as people to break out of that shell. And every one of my friends and a lot of the vMug leaders that I know are very kind of introverted naturally, but kind of put on a happy face to do their job, and that's great. And to me, it takes a lot of courage to kind of get up there and do something that is not natural for you, and being able to kind of recognize that and still kind of force yourself through that is definitely going to help you in the long run. And one of the ways that you can try to do that is when you're at work, right? I'm sure, and this happened to me when I was, in-house admin. I was one of those guys that, if any of you have, read the Phoenix Project, I was definitely Brent. I did a lot. I could fix stuff. I could, get things done, but I was doing everything, and people, were dependent on me for every single thing. And it got to the point where I didn't want to be bothered, and I would just start saying no. And I didn't realize that was kind of making me just not approachable and not somebody that people would want to go to for help. So it got to the point where I was good at my job, and I was good at technically doing certain things, but people wouldn't feel comfortable coming up to me and saying, hey, let me help, or can you help me out with this? Because they knew I was going to be that, that Nick Burns from SNL, and just be like, move, and tell, it helps that I have the same name. But I'd basically just tell them to get up, I'd fix the thing, and I'd walk away without saying a word. And at the end of the day, who wants to work with that person? They're an asshole. So just try to be a good teammate, and try to go out of your way to find a way to say yes, right? No matter what it is, there's probably an easy way if you just say, no, I don't have to do it. But what would it actually take for you to make something happen that probably shouldn't happen, right? How much of a lift is it going to be for you? And if it's not possible, then that's fine. But just, be constructive about the way you say it. Don't come off like a jerk, because you don't want to be that person. And if the roles were reversed and you were in that situation, you're going to want help from people as much as you can, right? And I think it's funny because I know you have a very similar story, Joe.
Oh yeah.
I might have been watching your Meet the Expert recently, and I saw it. But I have. It's just funny how this kind of comes up with a lot of folks I know. But
Yeah, they say if everyone around you seems like an asshole, you're the asshole, and I was most definitely the asshole much earlier in my career.
that hasn't changed one bit,
right? Maybe just a little. My only saving grace is the fact that honestly, I'm one of the few guys in IT who's an extrovert, most of the time. And yeah, I'm big, I'm goofy, and I have very, very little shame, so I can normally draw other people out of their shell.
Yeah,
That's about the only redeeming factor.
If only you were a male model. I mean, that's
I
all.
know.
So, along the same lines, and it kind of goes hand in hand. Like if we're talking about, just being approachable, being collaborative is also, kind of 1A, 1B. And it's really the thing that I think it took me years to understand. And this really kind of started with my participation in vMug is you're not alone. And people all over the world are going through the exact same thing that you're going through. And whatever you're trying to set up, somebody's already set it up somewhere, and there's information about it. And if you go out there, you can find it. But sometimes just being in a room or just being, VMworld's great for this, going over to the solutions exchange, just being able to kind of walk the floor and see all the vendors and, go over to the vBrownBag area and, have conversations with people that you normally wouldn't and get their perspective. And that's going to be the recurring theme, is that over time, you're going to be able to build these relationships and have that network of people that you can go to when you need to work on something. Oh, hey, I need to do something in PowerShell. You know what? Let me ask Joe. I know he's a PowerShell guy, right? Or let me. I have a question about Exchange. Let me hit up Exchange Goddess on Twitter or something. Whatever it might be, right? There's somebody out there that can help you. And the one thing that I love about the V community in general is that I really haven't found many people that are not willing to help. And if you put yourself out there and you ask for help, somebody's going to answer. And I think that's where, we need to make sure that you're out there. And like I said, I wouldn't be presenting right now if not for Joe just reaching out and saying, hey, you're going to do this or not. So, thank you again, Joe.
Yep.
And just get out there and share what you've learned with others and just kind of pay it forward.
It's amazing how easy it is to get involved and to just expand your social network by 1,000-fold by talking to 2 or 3 people at VMworld. Which it seems easy now that I'm looking back at it. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I kind of follow the guys with the hats. If you go find Ariel, if you go find like a Wences, you go follow any of these guys who will lead you to a gigantic crowd of people to teach you all the things. Don't just get the socks and get out. Just talk to people.
100%. It's funny too, because I always think about, what was my experience like if I was doing something, years ago, as opposed to if I did the same thing today. And some of these projects that I've worked on, I'm like, man, if I just had the network that I have today back then, it would have made my life so much easier. And just, it just boggles my mind about, what that looks like. So I definitely agree that just go make friends. And I know it sounds hard and sounds daunting for some of us, but it's really not as hard as you think it is. And kind of part of that is definitely that whole the 4 stages of participation. Now, I was working on this presentation with Ariel, years ago, and at one point we were threatening to write a book, and I had too many kids, and that kind of got in the way. But the goal is, when you start, you always think you don't know anything, and you don't realize that what you know is actually probably on par with what everybody else out there knows. And the one thing that I've noticed is that when you go out and you try to teach something to somebody else, it really tests your knowledge on it. And from a participation standpoint, I think we've all kind of been through this. I'm going through it right now with PowerShell. Like I'm still right now in the lurking stage. It was my first meetup, and apparently they threw up my my picture during the presentation, and Joe hit me up on Twitter, and then my friend Wes hit me up and said the same thing. But you have to build up that comfort level, right? You're going to start off and be a little bit uncomfortable. Then eventually you might start interacting or, kind of joking with people or starting some conversations. And then you're going to start contributing. Once you're comfortable and you start realizing that, what, I know just as much, if not more than these folks. Let me get it back a little bit. And then the contributions start turning into mentorships. And I found that this is probably the most rewarding thing. And I take, lots of calls with people as far as helping with vExpert applications, and for me the most gratifying thing was seeing people that I've helped become vExperts, more so than even myself getting it. And that's really what it comes down to. It's how can you help other people? And I probably said mentor way too many times already, but excuse me, it's a recurring thing that just kind of comes up, and it's probably the best reward that you can get, just kind of seeing what you're doing helping somebody else. So I definitely recommend it. And it goes both ways. Being a mentor is great, but also being a mentee is also rewarding as well, because you're going to learn from somebody with firsthand knowledge of something that can help you along the way and kind of speed up that time to knowledge, as I'll call it, where you're going to learn something a lot faster than you would have if you just tried to figure everything out yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. So this one is pretty straightforward. I think being dependable is huge, and it really just comes down to just do what you say you're going to do. And if you say you're going to help somebody, if you say you're going to present, get out and present. Go do the thing. Don't just, the whole, and I'm going to see how many, Star Wars references I can get in, and I'm going to get on that chat one day. But, do or do not, there is no try. You can do the thing. If you say you're going to do it, get out there and do it. And I try to kind of instill this into my kids. And one of the other things is, along with doing, when we're saying about being dependable, listen to people. And sometimes listening is the hardest thing in the world. But it kind of goes back to that whole, you were given one mouth but two ears. Hear what other people are saying. And what we usually see is that people are so anxious and ready to get out that one thing that they have in the back of their head, that you're not actually focusing on what the person is saying to you. You're just waiting for your chance to say the thing that you want to say. So if you can kind of flip that and try to get to the point where you can make that person feel heard, it'll do wonders for not only, people trusting you, but it'll make you somebody that people want to go to when they have questions or when they need help with something. So just make sure that you listen. And I say think here. It's one of those acronyms. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? So if you're going to say something, just see if it falls into those categories before you actually open your mouth, and make sure it's something that, people need to hear, instead of just you spitting something out because you want somebody to hear your voice. Okay.
And sometimes even if you have something to share, maybe just holding on for like 1 to 2 seconds to think about it before it falls out of your mouth, a lot of times will help you in the delivery. Or people
Exactly.
assuming that you've at least understood what they've said rather than just immediately responding once they finish talking.
Yeah. And it's funny because, as I mentioned, I'm a pre-sales engineer right now. So my goal is to sell people stuff, right? And that's what my job is all about. But what I found is I've been so much more successful since I've kind of made that change to, I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm trying to help you solve your problems. And, I'll
Yes.
talk about business and some of that stuff in a couple of slides here, but what can I do to help you do the thing that you need to do? And it goes right back to listening. You have something that you need to be heard about, right? I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I possibly can to make sure that you feel like I heard you. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm wrong. And the integrity thing. So once again, we've got a ton of leadership traits within the Marine Corps, and I'm sure, Joe, you've kind of gone through the same thing in the Air Force. And the one that kind of comes up time and time again is integrity, and just being somebody that is dependable, that you own things. If you mess up, just say you messed up. Yeah, I tripped over the power cord in the data center, my bad. Perhaps, sorry, I brought down the whole network, whatever.
Right.
I mean, that's an extreme case, but if you can't admit when you've done something that you probably shouldn't, then why would anybody want to listen to you in the future? And we've all made mistakes, but own it and learn from it and move on from it. All right. So we kind of touched on this one already, but really the biggest thing is, and I'm going to just keep saying mentor. I probably got it in this deck, I don't know, 75 times, but, lead by example. Luke never would have got where he needed to go without Obi-Wan and without everybody else on the journey. So make sure you're doing what you can, because the one thing I can't stress enough is that I've learned more by teaching other people than by me just trying to learn something myself. And you feel like if you're going to impart knowledge on somebody else, you damn sure better know what the hell you're talking about. So I kind of go out there and I dot my I's and cross my T's and make sure that I'm doing everything I can to be an expert in what I'm talking about. And I'm going to lead by example as well. I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I'm not going to do myself. So make sure that you're willing to go out there and practice what you preach. So we kind of touched on this. So one story that I heard, and this is something that was told to me by my friend Wes Carroll, that I since have read, and I have a book that I'll recommend here. Is this story about two guys who were digging a ditch, right? And somebody walks over and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" First guy's like, "Oh, I'm digging a ditch." He goes, "Oh, cool." Second guy goes, "Oh, we're building a hospital." So it really comes down to know your job, but know everything else that not everything else, but know what's going on in the organization as a whole, right? So one of the things I always like to ask is, when we're talking about, VMware obviously is near and dear to my heart. So I like to ask, people, how many of you manage, create, install, VMs? And I'm sure it's going to change to containers here soon. But how many of you, do that with VMs? And okay, how many of you know exactly what each VM does, right? How do you architect a solution if you don't know what the applications are doing, or what applications make your organization money? Or how do you plan for DR if you don't know what to protect first, right? And part of that also comes down to knowing, where does your company fit in the overall landscape of your business, around your competition, and understanding your customers and things like that. So when I was younger, all I cared about was knowing the technical part, right? But understanding how to take that technical solution and apply it to the organization or to the business, and knowing, yeah, it's great that I manage virtual machines, but knowing that these virtual machines that I'm managing make the company $1 million an hour, that's important. And it kind of helps you with your own sense of worth, and understanding where you fit in the organization, and knowing that it's not just an IT job, but you are providing value to your business, and you can actually quantify what that value is. And I did a much deeper presentation on this at VMworld last year. So there's a link up there. Just or you can just go up to YouTube and Google, upgrade your skills using a technical, or upgrade your technical skills using a business approach, or something like that.
Or just go watch the entire vBrownBag catalog.
That's a great
Shoot for
point.
that one.
And you know what? Honestly, if you put it at like 1.5 speed, I think you'll be done in like 3-4 hours, right? I mean,
Yeah, sure, somewhere in there.
yeah. And just keep watching. But yeah, so understand, not only what your job is, but how your job fits in the overall structure, because you're never going to get to that next job unless, one, you know what it is you're trying to get to, and you know where you're coming from. So I think that was kind of one of the biggest changes in my career, is when I realized, yeah, it's great that I can build these multi-site, VM networks, and I know how to stand up a MPLS and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, who cares? If that's not going to help someplace make money, why do I still have a job? And
Right.
how am I going to get to the next job?
Well, and that might be your job, but that's probably not the business. Unless your company is doing nothing but IT consulting all day, every day, then there's a good chance that your small little piece of the cog is something that the business relies on. But depending on what their focus is, you're either a cost center or you're just essentially a necessary evil for the business. That's not actually what they do to make money. They may rely on it, but that's not the thing that anybody puts down on paper when they say, what does my business do? It's not IT, right? That just never happens. And then,
Exactly.
you're much better off being able to communicate effectively your needs, or your budget, and the things that you're trying to do to help advance the business based on your projects in IT, if you can actually explain it in the terms of the business. Because if you can only talk tech terms to folks, they're not going to get it. Your CFO is going to say, yeah, that's great. Those are lots of big acronyms. Get out of my office.
Yep. So how many of you have had a technology you really wanted to get because it was so cool, and like you really wanted to work on it, and then it just got denied? That's exactly what Joe's talking about, right? And I got into a situation like that where I knew I needed something. I knew something was broken, but I didn't do a good enough job explaining it. And I didn't do a good enough job aligning it to what the CIO was trying to do. And understanding what the company's goals are, and understanding what the department's goals are, and aligning what you want to those goals is the best way to get the budget you want, and get the really cool technology that you want to play with in the door.
Or tie it to security, because everybody's got tons of
Oh
security
yeah,
money right
totally.
now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're VDI, baby. Let's go. All right. So this is a picture of me and my two sons. We were going to the aquarium up in New York. And yeah, I know he looks like a little rock star with the long hair, but that's my boy Rocco.
I was gonna say, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, rolling deep. But at the end of the day, we're going to the aquarium, and I love being able to go to the aquarium or the zoo, or just do Legos and Mario Kart and all this stuff, right? That's what I love to do, right? Work is kind of what I have to do. So make sure that you're understanding what is important to you. Where do you want to spend your time, right? And we've heard, and seen so many, posts recently, and there's been conversations on Twitter about, burnout. And somebody just posted the other day about, kind of feeling guilty about not spending enough time with their day job and learning certain things. And, at the end of the day, a job is a job. And I mean, that's the way I look at it. And I know there's some people out there who really love what they do and they're passionate and all that, but I'm more passionate about my stuff outside of work and my family and things like that. And that's really what I want to do. Is I want to spend my time with my family, and my job is a way to kind of get there. So make sure you're balancing that time. And if you feel like, you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and it's affecting you in a negative way where you're either feeling depressed or your health is going down or whatever it might be, there's other jobs out there. And you just have to kind of realize it and do what you can to get out there. Best way to do it that I've seen is go on Twitter and tell somebody you're looking for a new job, and we will help you. And I think we can't stress that enough, is that you only have one life, and you don't want to waste it, doing stuff that is not what you want to do. So, and along those lines, be relentless. Just get out there and be your best self. Go out there and do the things that that you should be doing and you could be doing. There's tons of resources out there if you want to learn. I love the fact that I have a Pluralsight subscription, so I'm always trying to learn as much as I can. Feel free to ask questions, and I mentioned it earlier, but just if you want something, go get it, and know that you know better than anybody what it is you want in life. And you might not know the best way to get there, and we'll be able to help you. But the one thing that I've found over time, and it's really kind of clicked, and I've seen this more and more with the people I've encountered in the V community, is that you're an expert whether you know it or not. And your experience is completely unique. Nobody has gone through the same life that you've gone through. Nobody's had the same upbringing. Nobody's had the same career path as you, unless you've got a twin that you've kind of lived with and worked with every day. I mean, it's possible, but at the end of the day, you have a very unique experience that you can share with somebody else and help help them along the way as well. So that was kind of some of the things I've acquired over time. And I mentioned earlier, when I first started, I was kind of laser focused, and I was kind of that asshole that didn't really help anyone. And it's definitely changed over time. And I think some of the things that really helped me is one, definitely understanding the bigger picture. We talked about the business understanding and things like that, but the more that you understand that overall landscape, the more it's going to give you that architectural view. And instead of just being an engineer who can, read instructions and deploy something based on, documentation or something like that, be the person who's thinking about all the different constraints and risks and what I need to do to make this environment work based on what I have, right? Do the things that are going to get you to that next level. And, part of that is definitely going to come from being collaborative and being out there in the community. And it's funny because talking about architecture, so I remember I was going out to take my VCAP design, and I went out to VMworld, and I literally bumped into Paul McSherry as I was reading his book. So it was just hysterical to me because I looked at his name tag. I was like, "There's no freaking way." And I wasn't a fanboy or anything like that, so I didn't make him sign the book, but I probably should have. Now that I think about it, but I was able to have a nice conversation with them, and we kind of talked on Twitter and things like that. But you have the ability to kind of meet these people. It's not like the the celebrity, normal person kind of thing. These are just people that are going through the same kind of struggles you are. They're have the same types of jobs. They have the same experiences. Maybe they're a little further in their career than you are today, but they have something to share with you. And I'm sure they'd be, willing to share those experiences with you. And now that I've kind of gone through some of these things, I'm comfortable getting out there and presenting, and I love to give back and be able to kind of have these talks and share with you, and even just have a conversation or on DMs on Twitter or whatever it might be, where I can help somebody, maybe with a struggle or, something that they're not feeling comfortable with. So being able to do this has definitely kind of changed my mindset and my overall view of just the industry and kind of how I see my job and my role in what it is I do. So I did kind of threatened that there was going to be a reading list. And I have, if you go to spookysolutions.com, I have this presentation up there, I believe. So you should be able to kind of download the slides. They might be a little bit different because I did tweak some of this for the audience today. But, make your bed, I kind of touched on as far as learning a task method. I see what you're giggling about there. It's that verbal judo, huh? But so I do put on Civil War. It's a Marvel Comics event. There was a movie about it, kind of loosely based on what really happened. Captain America and Iron Man were at odds with each other. There was a really great story. But the reason I put it up here is because you do need to unwind, and I full-heartedly believe in you do need to turn off sometimes. And if it comes down to having to see somebody put this on a reading list that has nothing to do with IT, get out there and read something or just do the thing that you want to do outside of your day job. I mean, other than that, just want to say thanks to everybody, and thanks for having me, and I appreciate you guys. And I'm always here. If you have anything, hit me up at on Twitter at Scuola, and hopefully somebody out there learned something.
Fantastic. All right, let's see. So that's it, folks. That's all the presentation. If you guys have any questions, we're still listening. So if you guys want to use hashtag vBrownBag, we're at vBrownBag. We've got most of the folks able to send messages through the webinar chat. Looks like we're having problems with Graham. So sorry if you're not receiving out there, bud. I don't know what's going on. Sounds like it might be DNS, which is your problem. So always fun there. Let's see if we can open it up for everybody to speak. Can we do it all at once? Okay, well, short list. So mics are open if everybody's got questions or anything to add.
I just want to say that last slide is gold.
Fantastic, Dan Moore. So, Nick, what was your defining moment on no longer being that asshole? What was the one thing that actually got you to flip the switch?
I realized, so I left the company, and I got really pissed off because somebody promised me something and they didn't deliver. And rather than actually listen to why they couldn't deliver, I just kind of went off, and I wound up quitting like 2 days later, and then found out that like my buddy or one of my friends took the job that I had left, and I was all for it, but found out that basically it was like a money thing, and he wound up getting the money that I asked for. So I was really pissed off about why I didn't get it, and it came down to the fact that I was a bit of a dick, and they didn't want to pay me what I wanted to get paid because of the fact that I was an asshole. So it just kind of taught me to treat people better. And I think now, especially now that I have kids, it's just a change in personality where I want to make sure I'm raising my kids to do the right thing and not be me.
Right. Very nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, so I don't think we have any other questions. Let me go back and check Twitter and the chat real quick. Nope. All right. So yeah, I guess just while we're talking, soft skills and especially with your current reading list you had out there, do you have anything else for professional development that you're in the middle of right now, or any new additions that have come up lately?
Honestly, it's really just trying to help as many people as I can. So at work, I've been trying to mentor some of the other SEs, and I took this presentation and made it more sales engineer-ish, kind of focused, and it's really just trying to get back. And I think that's the biggest thing, is if I can help make somebody out there better, it's a great feeling, first of all, for selfish reasons. And if I have to teach somebody, I need to make sure I've done what I can to learn it. And it's kind of that motivation, to get better and, do the things I need to do. And one of them is definitely public speaking, which it's funny because I just saw a secret, what's the secret to not being nervous? I think that's really just being myself, and I've gotten much more comfortable with who I am and knowing, the pros and the cons of my personality, and just really accepting that, look, this is me, and I'm going to be that person, no matter who I'm talking to, and just be honest about it. And that's kind of put me at ease and allowed me to get out there and talk a bunch of shit and hope that people buy it.
Yep. So with you and I both having similar starts to our career before we got into IT, what would you say would be a couple of points that just kind of got ingrained in you when you were in the service that you've seen that other people kind of had to pick up along the way?
So it might sound cliche, but the you're only as strong as your weakest link, totally true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're on a team, you need to do everything you possibly can to make sure everybody is on that same playing field, because one day you might not be available, or better yet, you might not want to be available. And that's where it comes down to, when I was talking about, kind of being that jack of all trades, doing everything at work, I never got to take vacation, and I never got to, go spend time with my family. And that's really what kind of drove me crazy, is that I got to the point where I got tired of having to be on all the time and not being able to turn off and working 60, 70-hour weeks. And I wasn't getting paid enough money where I think it justified me working my butt off like that. And I wasn't seeing the benefit that I really wanted to see. So I just got to the point where I'm like, let me go ahead and train people. And it got to the point where I started having conversations with my manager. And I was like, look, I need more people. I need to be able to backlog, to be able to have somebody to kind of pawn some of these tasks off. And instead of going out and hiring another, senior level architect or engineer, I went out and hired 2 or 3 junior people and trained them as best I could. And, sometimes you run the risk of people leaving once they get the knowledge. But if you're, keeping people in a situation where they feel like they're learning something, or they feel like their contributions are being valued, more likely than not, they're going to want to stay. And I think that's kind of the approach I took. And ever since I kind of made that switch, it's just been eye-opening.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always fall back to the that old African proverb of the if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's so many. I think the thing about the Marine Corps too is that the sense of brotherhood and the camaraderie, and it's a family. And I think the closest thing to that I found since has been the V community, and being able to, have our people on Twitter, and have VMUG, and have all these groups of folks where, I might not see somebody for 6 months, and then run into them at VMworld, and, it's like I saw them 2 days ago. And
Right.
I think that's what really sets things apart.
Oh yeah, that's always good. Let's see.
I got a quick question. What's the best career decision you've ever made?
Best career decision I ever made was becoming a sales engineer, and not working in-house anymore, and not working nights and weekends anymore. And I mean, it's a tough job sometimes, and sometimes the travel can be a bit of a pain, which luckily right now is not much of an issue. But I think being able to share some of the experiences that I've gathered over the years with other folks, and seeing other environments, and it's almost like doing the same job through somebody else's eyes. And it's tough to kind of quantify. I mean, Joe, I'm sure you've got something similar kind of in your role, but I think that's really been my best move since.
Yeah, honestly, just getting out of I don't even want to say getting out of ops, but getting out of the firefighting mode for everything.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, and something else I normally bring up in most of my conversations about automation or anything relating to IT ops in general. It's the, if you go in every day and you have like tickets for something, whether it's a request from somebody, or if it's, a problem that's recurring and it comes up, don't just fix the problem, make it go away, make it so that it's not even your help desk's problem. If it's something that's, that that much of a problem for any of your users or for anybody in your IT staff, then it's something that needs to be addressed or should be addressed, and just make it completely disappear.
It's the difference between having a fire extinguisher or installing a sprinkler system.
Right.
Where, you know, you can put out the fires at this larger scale and it's just done, and you don't have to really, it's not something you think about. You just know it's going to be taken care of. And I think that's the difference between being proactive as opposed to reactive is kind of life changing as well. But I think, you know, along the same lines, it's thinking about not just, you know, what do I have to do as far as, you know, yes, I have to download software, click next, do this, click here, you know, reading off a checklist, versus what's the scope of the system I'm trying to deploy? Why am I doing this? Understanding the more of the background information and the overall reasoning for why something is happening. And I think if you understand that why, sometimes it makes the architectural choices and the design decisions make a lot more sense to you.
Yep.
Another question. Sorry, I just had a meeting with my CIO at work, and I was asking him a ton of questions because I was trying to get information out of him of how do I get from my position as an engineer to that top level of a CIO.
Nice.
And now that you're in this, you know that you're somebody else that I don't work with normally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to ask you some questions. I've spoken to somebody else that works at Zerto, and Veeam, and the answer that you gave me about the best career decision about becoming an SE and no longer a customer, yeah, that's the same answer that they gave me. Yeah, so that might be a path that I take next.
Well, we're always hiring. Send a resume. Send it to me before you send it to Joe.
It's definitely a consideration. I would say just being on the other side of the house, being in a vendor role. I'm pretty sure for you, Nick, this was also your first vendor role, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, in my career in the past, I'd had lots of stuff on the customer side. Had a year where I was working at a partner shop, and went back to the customer side and first step into the vendor role. And I'll be the first one to tell you, and most of the guys that I work with, guys and gals that I work with at Veeam would say that, you know, I'm absolutely a terrible sales weasel. I'm grossly incompetent when it comes to the sales cycle and all the stuff that I should know on that side, and I'm trying to pick it up as I go. But it's the benefit that I bring from all of the ops experience, whereas everyone else that I've got on the team is focused on the product and the sales side of the house. They don't necessarily have the implementation or what does it look like on day 2 or year 2 of using this thing. So just being able to take your perspective and apply it, you know, as I see him clicking through the slides. But yeah, it's really just, you know, having the mindfulness of these are the things that you know, and in the core of what it is you do and what you've done in the past, how do you take that knowledge and apply it in new circumstances? You know, that's going to take you far. It's not necessarily that you have to go into like a sales role or a vendor role or an SE role. A lot of times it's just knowing how to apply your skills in different situations, or being able to take what you know and just expanding your horizons when you realize you're hitting the limits of what you can do with that knowledge, and being willing to do things like ask, how do you actually get there? What's your career path? And doing things like even sitting here listening to us ramble on for an hour about soft skills and communications and such. That's a huge step in the right direction that a lot of people are never willing to take.
Yep. And it's funny, I throw this up here because the easiest sales I've ever had are where I've gone in, I've asked what people are trying to do. Like, what is it you're trying to accomplish, right? And before I ever mention what it is Zerto does or how we do it, I want to understand, where is it that my customers are trying to get to? How can I help them do the thing that they're trying to do? And sometimes it might not be selling them our software. It can be, as Joe mentioned, I come from understanding operations, and you know, I've had, like I said, way too many jobs. So I've done the management side, I've done operations, I've done architecture. So I've got a lot of different ways of approaching things, and some of that stuff, I mean, you're not going to get unless you have the experience. And I don't want to come out here and say, well, all you have to do is just understand operations, because you're not going to understand it until you've actually lived that life, right? So being able to take a different perspective and understand, maybe the way that they're doing something, there's some ways that we can improve it. And I don't want to say that they're doing things wrong. It's maybe there's things that they can tweak, or they can adjust, or go about things from a different point of view, and make it so it's going to help their environment just be better. And if I can, in some way, shape, or form, impart that on the people I'm talking to, then I've done my job.
Yeah, and I would
What do
say
you love?
being active
Oh, go ahead.
in the V community, one thing you might want to do is actually just ask around. Between the local VMUG, it might be more applicable to you, or just reach out on Twitter and say, hey, honestly, I'm trying to take a step to be a CIO. This is where I am currently. Who's got advice, or who has some spare cycles to help me set up some mentoring? And you probably will find somebody that will quickly reply back and give you either some pointers, or be somebody that would kind of be a coach for your career.
Yeah. Along those same lines, why do you want to be a CIO? What is it about it that makes you want to have that job?
Slick.
That's cold-blooded. Yeah. Yeah. It's just being on top, just being the go-to kind of person. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I saw a movie called Renaissance Man when I was, I don't know how old I was, but I saw it, and I didn't know what Renaissance meant. And every single time people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I was like, I want to be a Renaissance man, just to know a little bit of everything. And so that's kind of the approach. And I'd eventually like to end up at that position. But yeah, once I know a lot more stuff, obviously. Yeah, but I know you don't have to be a CIO in order to get people to ask you questions.
Yeah, no, and that's great. So like, I would say if that's what you want, you want to be a Renaissance man, look at what everybody underneath that CIO is responsible for. Understand what you're managing. Understand, what are the responsibilities of the people underneath you, and what does it take for them to be able to do their job successfully? Because if you don't know what the people underneath you need to do to be successful, how can you lead them to that place? And how can you make them successful, right? Because a lot of this is going to be, you're going to be the person who owns that department. If you're the head person on top, you're going to be responsible for anything that people underneath you do. So you need to make sure that you're doing something to help lead them in the right direction. So I would say just go out there and try to learn as much as you can.
Last question for me, I promise.
No, keep them coming, please.
What do
I still got
you
some whiskey.
love? What do you love or enjoy most about your job right now, your current role?
What do I love the most? So I work on a great team, and I think that's one of the great things. I work with some really, really smart. It's just a group of people that we all want to see each other succeed, and we all try to lift each other up. I think the company itself, we've had a bit of a transition over the years where the culture, it's a place where I literally shared a cab with my CEO a couple weeks ago, and we were just kind of, shooting the breeze, and just being able to have that relationship where I can kind of be with him and he knows who I am, and we have that relationship, even though we're a pretty large company. I think you don't really see that in many places. And I think the fact that they embrace some of my passions when it comes to the V community and being able to present and things like this, I'm greatly encouraged to go out and do these presentations. And when I was a VMUG leader, it was definitely something that they appreciated, and they not even appreciated, but they encouraged it. So I think that's really being able to still be myself and still go after some of those things that I'm passionate about. without, being told, no, we don't want you doing that or whatever. I think that's really one of the things that has made this place great for me.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, everybody. I think just for the sake of time and wrapping this up, we will go ahead and at least stop the recording. So, Nick, thanks again for coming out and having a good chat with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Any last thoughts before we close it out?
No, just once again, get out there and do something to make somebody else better, and you'll feel great about it. And in order to do so, you're going to have to kind of test your limits, test your boundaries, and just be the person that you want to be as opposed to the person you are.
All right. So what was your key phrase again? Know your role. What?
Know your damn role and shut your mouth.
Very nice.
Get some mouth. No.
All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and roll up the recording.